Hello, my name is Daniel. Thank you for being here with me today. If you enjoy real, heartbreaking cheating stories from Reddit, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. This is a story that's been haunting me ever since I read it. It's not just about betrayal. It's about waking up one day and realizing the life you thought you were living wasn't even yours. It was something handed to you by a liar, wrapped in affection, sealed with manipulation. It comes from a woman named Mallory, 34, who lives in a small town outside Spokane, Washington. After ending a 12-year relationship, she wasn't looking for anything serious. But then she met Sean, 36, and everything felt different, fast, intense, intoxicating. He was charming in the way that dangerous people often are, confident, good-looking, and just reckless enough to seem thrilling. Sean pushed hard to define their relationship. Within weeks, he was dropping "I love yous" like confetti. He brought her to family dinners, introduced her to his niece, who called her auntie, and made her feel like she belonged. He told her about his 3 kids, explaining how their mothers were all difficult, especially the one who refused to let him see his oldest daughter. Mallory didn't question it too deeply. Who wants to believe the man they're falling for might be a liar? But things started getting strange. One of his exes was constantly calling. At first, Sean brushed it off, saying they only talked because they had kids together. He said the grandmother had custody, which he justified by claiming both he and the mother worked demanding, travel-heavy jobs. Apparently, handing over guardianship was easier for school and emergencies. It didn't sit right with Mallory, but she bit her tongue. She didn't want to seem judgmental. Then the ex moved to Spokane, alone, no kids. Sean said it was for work training and that the children needed to stay in their school. But Mallory couldn't ignore how young the kids were, 6 and 4. At that age, don't children need their parents more than their classmates? Still, she'd let it slide. She told herself it wasn't her place. Sean claimed to work in the cannabis industry, sort of. According to him, he helped his ex-brother-in-law transport products legally from state to state. But his work trips didn't always add up. When he went to Oregon, Mallory thought nothing of it. But his phone was always dead, even though he carried a portable charger. Then a friend posted a picture. Sean, cuddled up with another woman. That's when the curtain finally dropped. Mallory ended it right then and there. She was heartbroken and furious. So she did something petty. She posted a rant on his Facebook wall. That post changed everything. The mother of Sean's oldest child saw it and reached out. What she revealed was shattering. Sean wasn't being kept away from his daughter. He just didn't bother. He hadn't made a single child support payment. He owed over $20,000. He deliberately worked under the table and kept moving to avoid garnishment. Worse, Sean had a criminal record that stretched back to his teens, starting with a rape conviction at 15. He'd been in and out of trouble for fraud, theft, and drug offenses. Mallory had no idea. And the ex who moved to Spokane? She wasn't some distant former flame. She was his girlfriend of 9 years, still very much involved with him. They hadn't lost custody of their 2 kids because of jobs. They gave them up willingly to chase heroin and pills. There was more. A 4th child whose paternity had been pinned on another man. That man had been unknowingly paying child support for 17 years. Mallory hadn't just been cheated on. She never was the main woman. She was the side piece. His family knew and helped him keep up the charade. Even his children, 10 and 16, were part of the act. As for the woman in Oregon, she wasn't just a fling. She was his childhood sweetheart, his so-called soulmate. Every time they tried to be together, one or both of them ended up in jail. She had her own list of charges: fraud, theft, and drug possession. And worst of all, she'd served time for criminally negligent homicide after a DUI crash killed her passenger. Mallory couldn't believe what she had fallen into. So, she paid for a background check. What came back was a dossier of chaos, lies, crimes, names of people who never should have crossed her path. And suddenly, it wasn't just heartbreak, it was grief for a year of her life that never really belonged to her. The records painted the rest of the picture, and it was even worse than Mallory expected. She thanked Vanessa, Sean's former partner, and the mother of Sean's oldest daughter, for having the courage to reach out. That single act unraveled everything Mallory thought she understood. At first, she tried to convince herself to walk away with dignity, to take the loss, lick her wounds, and move forward. But then the grief twisted into something sharper. If she walked away now, Sean would get to keep lying, keep hurting people, keep ruining lives without consequence. And Mallory couldn't live with that. So, she did what she had to. She gave Vanessa everything she had: Sean's social security number, past and current addresses, even old state IDs. Vanessa, who'd spent years trying to get justice for her daughter, took it from there. She contacted child support enforcement in her home state. Within days, a block was placed on Sean's driver's license. He wouldn't be able to get a new one in any state until his overdue payments, now exceeding $20,000, were brought current. And that wasn't all. She learned Sean was planning to play house with his newest girlfriend, this time pretending to be a devoted father. He had reached out to Vanessa, requesting a family-style visit, including both his daughter and his girlfriend's child. Vanessa agreed on the surface, playing along like everything was fine. She scheduled the meeting. But what Sean didn't know was that the police would be waiting for him there. He would not be hugging his daughter that day. He'd be taken into custody for years of unpaid support. He wouldn't walk out of jail until a hefty portion of that debt was paid, plus bail. Mallory timed her actions with careful precision. The day before Sean's federal tax refund was due, she passed his details to Vanessa. It was just enough time for child support services to intercept the entire refund. For the first time in over a decade, Sean involuntarily contributed something to his daughter's well-being. It wouldn't fix anything, but it was something. And it didn't stop there. She also reported his ex-brother-in-law's business to the IRS. It was the front Sean used to launder money from his cross-state drug runs. Once that house of cards started to fall, his steady income would be gone. With his criminal record, he couldn't even get hired at a chain store. And if by some miracle he did, a quarter of every paycheck would vanish toward the debt he tried so long to dodge. Still, Mallory didn't feel triumphant, just empty. She told 2 friends about what she had uncovered. Both happened to be ethical hackers. They were angry. So angry, in fact, that they reached out to others in their network. Together, they started working on locating the man who had been conned into paying child support for a child that wasn't his. 17 years of lies. 17 years of money stolen under the mask of fatherhood. The betrayal in this story wasn't just personal. It had weight. It had casualties. In a comment reply, Mallory shared that Vanessa had promised to record Sean's arrest. Just the idea of him finally being held accountable gave her a scrat of satisfaction. She hoped someone would tell him before the cuffs clicked into place that it never would have happened without her. When someone warned that Sean might read the Reddit post and bail on the meeting, Mallory didn't flinch. "If he sees this and runs, fine," she wrote. "He can't drive. Next traffic stop, he's done. He always drives like he's invincible. That arrogance will catch up with him." Even if she didn't get her poetic moment, the video, the tears, he would still be arrested, still lose. And she had more information she hadn't even shared yet, too detailed for bullet points. Someone else chimed in. "Isn't what he's doing with the cannabis still illegal?" Mallory replied without hesitation, "Very illegal." And then she let something slip. She might have figured out his email and messaging app passwords. She might have handed them over to her friends, friends with technical skills and moral clarity. There was a strong chance that even as she wrote the post, someone was quietly tracking Sean's movements, logging IPs, preparing to hand over digital breadcrumbs to authorities. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protecting people from the damage he'd already caused and the damage he still might do. Mallory didn't take joy in any of this. But justice? That was something. A sliver of peace in the wreckage of a year she would never get back. Vanessa and Mallory's unlikely friendship had started with pain, but quickly turned into something steady, even strange in its comfort. They spoke a few times a week now, traded long texts about their kids, their lives, and of course, about Sean. On Facebook, they were open about it, posting memes and jokes, tagging each other under bitter quotes that Sean, by sheer irony, would never see. He had blocked Mallory long ago. "People piss me off all the time, but very few hand me the entire toolkit to dismantle their life," she once wrote in a post. The truth was, it hadn't taken much effort. Just a few conversations, a handful of shared information, and Sean had unknowingly lined up every domino himself. Other people started chiming in too. One man, going by the username Emoji, left a comment that stayed with Mallory for days. He shared how his own relationship had broken down when his son was only 2 months old. Despite lies, gatekeeping, and endless court threats from his ex, he never missed a child support payment. "I still paid every month," he said, "even when she wouldn't let me see him, even when she threatened police if I tried." It hurt Mallory to read that, because here was someone who had every reason to give up, but didn't. And then there was Sean, a man who ran from every responsibility, every consequence, every truth. Then came the update. Mallory hadn't planned on posting again. She thought it was over. But so many people doubted her, questioned if any of this could really be true. So she came back, receipts in hand. To make things easier, she broke it down again, bullet style. Sean, her ex. Jordan, his new girlfriend. Vanessa, the woman he had failed and who now had the power to undo him. Sean had kept in touch with Vanessa longer than ever before, not out of guilt or love, but because he believed she'd give him back half of the intercepted tax refund. She didn't. Of course she didn't. She told him it must have gone into the state account for their daughter. "I haven't received anything either." A lie, but one that served justice. Then Sean forgot his daughter's birthday. Just a few days before that, Jordan had posted a Father's Day tribute on Facebook, tagging Sean, praising him for being strong despite not being with his child. Vanessa read it and laughed bitterly. He wasn't with his child because he didn't try. When Vanessa confronted him, Jordan jumped in to defend him, claiming it was all due to work schedules. But Vanessa quickly caught her slip-up. She revealed where Sean worked, the hours, everything. Enough for Vanessa to hand it all to a caseworker at Child Support Services. His wages were now being garnished. As a token of guilt, or more likely to keep up appearances, Sean sent his daughter a pair of Jordans a few weeks later. The child barely reacted. She didn't want to talk to him. On Facebook, Sean and Jordan still played the happy couple, the perfect little facade. Behind the scenes, he told Vanessa he couldn't afford a plane ticket because of the garnishments. Mallory thought that would be the end of it. Maybe not everything she wanted, but enough. Vanessa was getting steady support. There was some justice. Then, 10 days ago, Mallory got a DM on Instagram, the kind that freezes your hands as you read it. "It might not matter to you, but leaving you wasn't easy. I know it looked that way, but it tore me up. I'm not even mad at you for all the chaos you caused. We all make stupid choices. I chased a fantasy, moved across the country, and I got what I deserved. You're a beautiful woman. You didn't do anything wrong. I had to do this." She didn't even react. Another message followed. "I'm truly sorry. From the bottom of my heart. I never said anything to you that I didn't mean. I wish I had done things differently. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry." And still, nothing. Mallory didn't cry, she didn't rage, she didn't even smile. She just felt quiet. For the first time since the beginning of it all, she didn't feel anything for Sean. Not hate, not hurt. And that, to her, was a miracle in itself. Mallory hadn't told Vanessa about the message Sean sent. She hadn't felt the need to. It wasn't worth reliving the past, not when she was trying so hard to step into something new. But just 4 days later, while on a short vacation visiting family, her phone lit up with a message from Vanessa. Apparently, Sean had confessed to her too, only it wasn't just a message, it was a sad, chaotic storm of desperation. "He says his girlfriend cheated on him," Vanessa wrote. "He's living in his car now." Mallory paused before replying. "Karma." Vanessa responded with a simple, "He's devastated." And that, at least, rang true. He had nothing. No home, no partner, no stable job, and no one left who would listen. "He told me I'm a terrible person," Vanessa added a moment later. "Said he'll never speak to me again, but I doubt that'll stick." Mallory didn't even blink. "He has nothing to worry about from me. I'll never speak to him again either." Vanessa admitted he had asked her not to tell anyone, said he was embarrassed, claimed he lost everything for that woman, and now that she was gone, he was stuck in a car with no future and nowhere to go. "She's insane," Vanessa said. "I warned him. We both did." Mallory shook her head at her screen. "I'm actually seeing someone now. He's wonderful." Vanessa replied instantly, "Good. Karma." They laughed together over texts about Sham's fall of grace. He told Vanessa he was working late and came home one day to find his girlfriend with a client. She had blocked Vanessa on all social media, so when they tried to look her up again, the content was gone. "She knows I'll say something," Vanessa wrote. "She knows we all warned her." "Less than 6 months," Mallory replied. "He called her the love of his life, best friends, soulmates." Vanessa didn't flinch. "I don't feel sorry for him. He's hurt so many people. What did he expect?" And yet, deep down, Mallory could still see the pieces of him that had fooled her too. The smooth lies, the hollow promises, the way he knew just when to play victim.
"He's heartbroken," Vanessa admitted later. "I think he really believed it was love. But she didn't want him to have a car or a job or friends. It's like he walked into a cage and locked the door himself." Mallory didn't want to admit it, but it made sense. Sean had always chosen chaos, even when he had other options. Vanessa said she replaced him long ago, in her heart, in her home, in her peace. Her only goal had been to make sure he ended up exactly where he belonged. Nowhere. And now he was there. Homeless. Alone. Unraveled in the very city where he once strutted like he owned the world. "I think people get what they deserve when they treat others like he did," Mallory said. "I'm with family now. My cousin just had a baby. I'm holding this 1-month-old little miracle while reading your message, and I can't stop smiling. Life's weird sometimes." Then came the part that Mallory hadn't expected. Jordan had cheated on Sean. The same woman he left everything for, moved across the country for, lied for, burned bridges for, had betrayed him too. Sean had unblocked Mallory on Facebook, maybe hoping she'd see, maybe hoping for sympathy. She checked his profile. Post after post of self-pity, public despair. Everything that used to be Mallory's pain was now his performance. And still, she felt nothing. Not pity, not vengeance, just detachment. What got to her most wasn't the downfall, it was his messages, the way he tried to pin the label of chaos on her, like she was the one who tore it all down. "I'm not mad at you for all the chaos you caused me," he had written. Mallory couldn't believe the gall. He had created the storm, and now he wanted to blame the thunder on the woman who handed him an umbrella. It was manipulation, plain and simple. A sad man trying to crawl back into the life of someone who had already stepped away for good. She did wonder, though, had anyone found the man who had been tricked into paying child support for nearly 2 decades? The man whose name was on a birth certificate he never should have signed. Not yet. Not as far as she knew. But maybe one day, that part of the story would find its ending too. And what lingered for Mallory more than anything else was the thought of the children, the ones left behind in all this mess. The daughter who waited for calls that never came. The son who watched his father lie and vanish again and again. Children who never asked for any of this, forced to grow up with someone who only showed up when it was convenient or when it served his ego. That was what broke her heart the most. Because in the wreckage of every adult's choices, it was always the kids who bled the quietest. It was supposed to be a celebration. Mallory had been planning the trip for months, a surprise for her 13-year-old son, Carter. He'd worked so hard, bringing home straight A's for the entire semester, and she wanted to do something meaningful for him, something unforgettable. A trip to Disney World, just the two of them. She had saved up, mapped the itinerary, and imagined the look on his face when they arrived. But things took a strange turn. Her phone rang one afternoon, and it was Sean. She hadn't heard his voice in months. He sounded casual at first, asking what day she was leaving, if she was driving or flying. Confused, she asked what he meant. That's when it hit her. He thought she was taking both Carter and his younger son, Caleb. Sean's son from the affair. Mallory kept her tone calm, though she could already feel her stomach turning. She explained that the trip was just for her and Carter, that it was a reward for his grades and a moment of bonding that they both deeply needed. Sean didn't take it well. He became defensive, accusing her of being petty, of punishing his younger son for the past. "You're favoring Carter over his brother," he snapped. "You're trying to get back at me through them." Mallory hung up before her voice could crack. Later that night, Carter came into her room looking uncertain. He told her that his dad had sounded disappointed, that Caleb had heard about the trip and was hoping to go too. Carter asked, gently, almost apologetically, if there was any way his brother could come along. Mallory forced a smile. "Sweetheart, this trip is for you, just you." But the guilt lingered, especially when a few mutual friends heard about it and started chiming in. Some told her she was being selfish, that she was denying a child an experience out of spite. Others implied she was using the past to draw lines that no longer needed to exist. It made her question everything. Was she wrong? Was she letting old wounds bleed into the present? Still, in her heart, she knew the truth. She didn't owe that child anything. Not resentment, not love, not hatred. Just nothing. Caleb wasn't hers. She had shown him kindness when he was in her home, fed him, played games with the boys, smiled when they laughed. But a Disney vacation? That wasn't hers to give. What hurt the most was Sean's entitlement. The way he spoke as if it was obvious she would want to coordinate travel with him, as if they were still a team, as if he hadn't shattered everything they'd built when he left her for Jordan, the woman who would later cheat on him and leave him homeless. Mallory found herself shaking her head in disbelief.
Who assumes that after cheating, fathering a child outside the marriage, and abandoning his family, that the woman he betrayed would want to take that child on a trip? The internet had thoughts. One commenter said bluntly, "You're not the villain. You're a mother taking her son on a trip. Sean's other kid isn't your responsibility. You've already gone above and beyond by even allowing him into your home." Another added, "Just because your ex doesn't know how to keep his pants zipped doesn't mean you have to foot the bill for his mistakes. If he wants his sons to go to Disney, then he should take them both himself." A third wrote, "He accused you of favoring your son over a child you didn't birth, didn't raise, and didn't choose to bring into this world. As you should. That's not cruelty, that's just reality." Their words hit hard because Mallory needed the reassurance. She needed to know that protecting her own heart wasn't the same as being unkind. One reply stood out above the rest. "The fact that you let the child of your ex's affair into your home at all speaks volumes about your capacity for forgiveness. But forgiveness doesn't mean sacrifice. You don't owe anyone the pieces of yourself that were already broken." That line stayed with her for days. The child wasn't the problem. Caleb was innocent in all of this, but Sean wasn't, and neither were the people who kept telling Mallory to just be the bigger person. Being bigger had nearly destroyed her. She had lost years to self-doubt, to questioning her worth, to trying to carry more than what was ever hers to hold. Now she just wanted to give her son something special, something untouched by betrayal, a trip that was theirs alone. Because when you've spent enough time being everyone's fallback, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for your child is to finally say no. There are people in this world, sometimes even close to us, who benefit from keeping us small, broken, and confused. They quietly push the idea that suffering is noble, that forgiveness must be limitless, and that our own pain doesn't matter if someone else's needs are louder. But that's not love, that's control. Mallory learned that the hard way. Through years of trying to keep peace with a man who brought nothing but chaos, she lost herself. And when she finally started reclaiming her peace, those same voices whispered that she was being selfish. But she wasn't. She was being free. You are not required to set yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. Not for your ex, not for his child, not for anyone who once took a piece of you and left you bleeding. You are allowed to love with boundaries. You are allowed to say no. And most of all, you are allowed to heal. Mallory's story is more common than many realize. In relationships, especially ones that end with betrayal, it's easy to be manipulated into thinking you owe someone closure, forgiveness, or even continued emotional labor. Toxic partners often weaponize guilt, especially when children are involved, framing your boundaries as cruelty. But here's the truth. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. If you've gone through something similar, it's important to listen to your gut. Ask yourself, are you giving from a place of love or from fear? Are you accommodating because it's right or because you're afraid of being labeled the villain? If it's the latter, pause, reflect, and protect your energy. In situations involving children from affairs or complicated dynamics, show kindness, but don't confuse that with obligation. You are not responsible for fixing the wreckage someone else created. Kindness should be offered freely, not demanded. If you've gone through something similar, consider therapy or support groups where your pain is heard and validated. Surround yourself with people who remind you that healing isn't selfish, it's survival. You are allowed to move on. You are allowed to protect your joy, and you are absolutely allowed to never look back.